So in this video I just wanted to show you what the pre-flight check looks like on the Scout's Cessna 172. I'll be showing you the checklist on the JBC Julia Bravo Charlie, which is the plane that I just completed a flight on. It was my number 20 or hour 25 flight circuits earlier this morning. All right, so the purpose of this checklist is to make sure that the plane is in good condition before we actually take it out on the air. There are other checks, other items, or there are other checklists that we need to run through after the engine has started and after we've gone inside the cockpit. But before everything else, what we do is the pre-flight check. So I'm going to start from the front of the plane. I'm going to turn my camera over. I'm going to start with the front of the plane and to make sure that the propeller, the edges are all good and there's no chips, there's no damage in the propeller. And I'm going to have a look inside the engine. You can see there is like a rubber belt here. Make sure that there's got tension and there's no visible damage. Of course, while I'm at it, I'm going to look for any debris. Could be bird nests and other things that fell into the engine while it was parked out here. Make sure that all that is clear. And down here, normally what I would do is I would grab on the propeller and use my weight to try and make sure that the spring here, this is a hydraulic dampener, that it works properly. I can't do that because I need to use my second hand to hold the camera, so I can't actually hang off the propeller right here to put enough weight on the front landing gear wheel in order to actuate the hydraulic dampener there. So that's another thing that we do. All right, and move towards the side, make sure that all the panels are good. Just going to push through, or use my hand to apply a bit of pressure, make sure that the panels are good. Make sure that this hole here is not blocked. This is critical for the altimeter, the static vent. Continue. Anything that's like an air intake, like this one here, this provides air to the cabin. Make sure it's clear. Right, make sure that the wing lead is undamaged. This is the pitot tube, sorry, not the pitot, the stall horn. So if the plane's about to stall, this contains a horn that will make a sound to just give you a bit of warning that the plane is about to stall, so you can increase its airspeed to prevent the stall. So check that there is nothing blocking this vent as well, or this or air intake. The pitot tube, ensure that the cover is off before flight. I'm going to remove it temporarily. So the cover is off and there's nothing blocking the tube. I'm going to put this back on because the plane is parked. I don't want to forget this. The strut, make sure the strut is not damaged. And here is one of the two tank vents. This is vents out any gases that are coming from the fuel that's stored in the wing. Okay, normally we check also the tire pressure before each flight. It looks okay. At the moment, check the brake pads right there. They look new and unworn. Any leaks in the hydraulic system here that actuates the brakes, make sure that's good. Anything that's weird, for example, if there was a bend or some visible deformity on this landing gear, that is something that needs to be reported. Continuing with the other end of the wing here before I continue towards the back of the plane. So it's the wingtips. I'm going to check the lights later. Now I need to make sure that the ailerons are working, but in order to do that, I need to remove the control lock. So I'll do that with one hand. Yes, there you go, control lock removed. Must remember to put it back on. And with the control lock removed, I can ensure that the ailerons are moving freely, and both ailerons on both sides of the plane, both wings, are moving in opposite directions. You can see as I'm moving the left aileron up, Then the right one goes down, and the opposite, of course. Left aileron goes down, right one goes up. Okay, all good. Continue with the flaps. So here's a flap. Oh, another thing that I forgot to mention with the ailerons is that they've got metal bands that are connecting the aileron and other control surfaces with the body of the plane. These are to discharge electrostatic electricity, or potential I should say. Make sure that that is not broken. And of course look at the hinges. There's one hinge here, make sure that's nice and solid. And there's hinges down there as well. Make sure that nothing is broken. All right. Now, flaps. With the flaps, you just push them up where the hinges are and make sure that they don't give, that they're solid, so they're not moving. I'm also going to check and actuate the flaps later. I need to turn on the battery, so I'll do that later. Next, have a look for any baggage in the compartment back here. Someone might have placed something heavy, which can have a real effect in the balance of the plane. So make sure that's empty, or if it isn't, you need to know what's in there and how much it weighs. Once you're done, lock the rear compartment. There's another static vent, make sure it's clear. Try out pushing on the panels, make sure there's nothing loose. Okay, the horizontal stabilizer in the back, just like with the ailerons, this is the elevators. Make sure that they move nicely, and they need to move in the opposite direction. Unlike the ailerons, the elevators in the back move in the same direction. So both sides move together. So I can feel that there is no obstruction, the movement is free, so that's good. There is just a metal wire, just like with other control surfaces. They're all connected to the plane so that everything is on the same potential. Now here, this is for the rudder. Make sure that the rudder moves without obstructions, and also check the tension of these wires. So these wires need to be not hard, but there's got to be a little bit of tension here. Right, and while I'm at it, check that the undercarriage is all clear of any, or clean of any damage. There's no tail strike, that's clean. Tail strike will be a pretty significant event in the plane's life. It needs to be recorded and reported. All right, hinges, all good. And the metal wire here as well. Also the trim tab, make sure that this is doesn't move. All right, continuing on the other side, there's no dings on the leading edge of the vertical stabilizer. No issue with panels, they're all solid. The rivets are good. Checking flap. Flap is good. Hinges, I can see all the hinges. Nothing seems to be broken. The aileron is free to move. We already tested that, but you can see how it moves alongside the other aileron on the other side of the plane in opposite directions. So good. Check the edges. These are actually new covers for the edges of the wings, so they look nice, shiny as a plastic. Going to check the lights momentarily. No dings in the leading edges of the wings. The struts, good. Air intakes, so they're here. Actually, I now remember. This is the air intake for the front passengers, air intake for the rear passengers. All right, also, check tires. Normally we'd use a gauge here for the tire pressure. Visibly looks okay. And then again, the brake pads, these look new, and there's no leak coming out of the hydraulic system, the actuator for the brakes. All right. Next, check the engine oil level. It's actually very hot, so I'm not going to take it all the way out, but because I can't hold it. But we need to have just a bit of 6 pints of oil. Now this is hot, so I'm going to put it back in, and I've already checked it. 6 pints, just like you would do with a a car, I guess, in the olden days. All good. And another thing I would do would be to check oil levels, so I mean fuel levels, and to do that we use this this highly sophisticated instrument. It's just a stick with some notches marked on that stick, and every notch is 25 liters. So you'd climb up here. I guess that's a problem with high wing planes. You'd climb up here, open up the fuel compartment, and there's another one on the other side, so I'll have to do the same thing on the second tank on the other wing. Insert the measure in, let it soak for a few seconds, take it out, and you can see that I've got 1, 2, almost 3 in total, 3 notches up. So it would be almost, I'd say 70 liters fuel in this wing. And I'd repeat the same thing on the other side. Save us a bit of time, I'm not going to do it now. Put the cap back on. Okay, and there's one last very important test we've got to do, and that is to check the fuel for contamination. So we'll use this cup to take some samples of fuel. There are sampling points in each under each wing, plus in the undercarriage in the front where the engine is. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. You got to get some fuel from all of them. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to take some fuel out of this. Just 1 point. Take a bit of fuel out of this. Check it. And nice under the sun. So make sure that there is no water mixed with the fuel. You'd see it because the fuel itself, avgas, is blue. The water is heavier than the fuel. So you'd see that the water would concentrate towards the bottom of this cup. So if any water is present, in this case it isn't, but if there was any water in this tank, you would need to start just gradually draining the fuel with the water. And because the water tends to concentrate towards the bottom, it's heavier than the fuel. The water would be the first one to be drained out of the tank. So then it's safe to fly once there is no more water present in these samples. You need to take samples in total from the 10 sample points, 5 on the left wing, another 5 on the right wing, and there's another 3 points under the engine right there. Okay, so that concludes part of the checks. There's a couple of things left, and that is to check the flaps, make sure that they actuate, that they work, and the lights. So for that we need electricity. So I'm going to turn on the master switch, turn on strobe, nav, taxi, landing, and set full flap right there. All right, so you can see that the flap has already moved, both sides, and they're solid. So as I'm pushing them up, you can see there's a little bit of give here, but that's normal. And you can actually see the mechanism a lot better now with the flap extended. That's one thing. Now I also turned on the lights, so you can see there's a strobe back there, and the navigation light right there, and then the right wing has a strobe, navigation light green on the right side. We've got landing and taxi. Could be the other way around. One of them is taxi, the other one is landing. And strobe and navigation lights on the left side. that's it. The lights work, the flaps work. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the taxi light, this is the landing light. They both work. Let's switch everything off and bring the flaps back and strobe off, nav off, taxi off, landing off. I'll wait for the flaps to finish retracting. Done. And then switch off the master switch. I guess turn off the master switch. And I'm going to put on the master lock or the control lock for the yoke. I need 2 hands, so I'm going to do that as soon as I finish recording. Alright, so that's it. Takes about a good 10 minutes to do this pre-flight check. Very important, as you can see. You don't want to go up if any of the things that I've checked isn't working. But there are other checklists that we'll have to execute once we are inside the plane. And there's another check, for example, for starting the engine. There's a bunch of things we need to do before actually starting the engine. And then there's other things that we need to check after starting the engine. And then there's other things we need to check while taxiing the aircraft to the holding point, to the runner bay. And then there's other checks that we need to do once we are at the runner bay and just before takeoff. And there are other checks we need to do at the holding point, just before entering the runway, and so on. So there's a lot of checklists in aviation, but it all starts with the ground checklist.